Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we're bringing you day 374 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. As always, with Olexiy Arestovych, former advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician. Also, our today's membership thanks go to Yelena Einhorn. Thank you so much for supporting our channel. We appreciate your help. Enjoy! Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feigin Live. It is Saturday, March 4th, 3 minutes past 9 in Kiev and 3 minutes past 10 in Moscow. Day 374 with Olexiy Arestovich. Olexiy, glad to see you. Good evening. Alright, we have 75,000 already who joined us, 18,000 click the like button. Big ask to our viewers to continue sharing links to that stream anywhere you can. If you're watching us from territories like Russia, send it in Messenger to your friends. Make sure you click the like button. That definitely helps us to get new audiences and push the message further. And you can find a link to Olexiy Arestovich channel and to Mark's in description. And if you are watching that in English, do not forget to do the same with Privateer Station channel as well. We just had a stream with the leader of Russian Volunteer Corps. His call sign is White Rex, and it was, I think, a good stream. So right after that, let's go to Olexiy. Now, I'm back home. I have my usual chroma key, and Olexiy has real books behind. Carl Jung, probably psychotypes behind him. Anyway, so what do you think, Olexiy, about Bransk and the Bransk action? He actually said hi to you during his stream. Well, until now, it was only Legion of Free Russia who was fighting on the territory of Ukraine. And on occasion, they did do some partisan activities in Russia, but some of their free members. And this is the first time another org did not hide their faces, took arms and their flags, entered territory of Russia, and they called upon Russian citizens to liberate the country from Putin's oppressive regime. This is good. We talked about that before in public and in private with many Russian oppositioners. There are people who are very much on the peace side, who are against any violence, but I think that regimes such as Putin, such a cannibalistic regime, will need to... Some force will need to be used in order to topple it. And big kudos to those Russian citizens who were strong enough for that step, because we understand the attitude towards them by their compatriots later will be different, will be mixed, even if they somehow magically not shoot any civilian and will just work on Putin's works. But, you know, in Russian side, there was already a scream and they're trying to use that to propagandize whatever. They already are talking about shooting up a school bus, killing a driver. Yeah, right, there are no school buses in Russia. Our kids walk to schools. There are no school buses, period. Exactly. What is a school bus in Bransk region? And then there was some boy Fedya who was wounded, who was saving his girlfriends, and his brothers are fighting in Ukraine against Ukrainian Nazis. So, and even basically like an old rumor, an old myth about the bodyguard Karasup and his dog. So there was another interesting one that ran in the publics for a while, that Russia, KGB, was preparing a false flag action, and then Ukraine Intel figured that out, came through, did what they wanted to do, and they were not touched by anything because people in the region were expecting, or all the special forces were expecting KGB people to be doing something. So they were basically in the right place in the right time, so they were not touched, they were not attacked back, pushed back. They did what they did, the Russian Volunteer Corps, and then went back to Ukraine. So that's another interesting episode of storytelling. But again, we are going into the second year of war in Ukraine. A lot of atrocities, a lot of crimes, a lot of dead people. So when one starts a war, he should expect that the war will come to his house as well. So I can only wish good luck and success, all kinds of success to Russian Volunteer Corps. We'll actually have several other detachments, national detachments. There is Bashkir Corps, and there is a Kalmyk group that is being talked about forming now. So there's enough volunteers, and the whole story about shooting up the school bus and all that came up in the Russian media. This is definitely targeting United States, because in States, school bus is a definite marker. It's a definite cultural marker, and people know the yellow school bus that everybody has to stop when the lights are blinking and it loads and unloads the kids. So that's definitely external targeting, with the message of Russia trying to play it around to spin it. Once again, even if our presidents would have, by any circumstance, occasionally shoot a driver of some vehicle, that definitely not a school bus, likely was due to some other incident or activity that they were involved. We're not hunting civilians. Our fighters do not hunt civilian targets. But, things likely will start popping in Russia. It is a huge country, and Olexiy is rephrasing the hymn of USSR to sound that my country is far and wide, stretches far and wide, and it has a lot of partisans there. There is also, Olexiy, another reaction, mostly coming from Ukraine, that, Ukraine never acknowledged that anybody entered from their territory into Russia. And my always retort to that is, why Ukraine even needs to acknowledge, to report to Moscow that somebody entered from Ukraine to Russia? Who is Moscow to be sent this message to? They're here to fight and kill people, so they're getting paid with the same coin. Nobody's there, and yeah, those are just local volunteers. Personally, when I hear these things, I remember being asked, what did Podolyak say? Who cares what Podolyak said about that group? Nobody will take responsibility. If this group decided to open their faces and discuss that, they did. But otherwise, nobody cares. It's war. Right, Mark. You know that old anecdote about why would they harm us? What for? We understand it's okay to do it to them, right? And here we have example of that. Let's kill people, let's blow up their cities daily, let's threaten the world with nukes, and then frown in surprise, why are you hurting us? In Russia, they defined it, Olexiy, funny, they defined it as terrorist act. What are you doing, guys? What are you doing in Ukraine? This is international law that you're bringing up. You violated it for about a year. Right, Mark. Zaporozhye, remember that missile that hit another 5-story civilian building there? Condo complex? Yeah, there was another dead child discovered in the rumble. And that's happening daily. Very often families die when they sleep in beds with their kids. What is that? This is not terrorism? Yeah, war is war, Olexiy. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I want to say. It doesn't mean that we will unilaterally target, or we'll just decisively target civilian targets in Russia, but we can definitely fight them back in the classification of what terrorism is. Okay, guys, as we see you're joining, please continue clicking the like button. This is important. Each click brings 10 more people, brings our stream to their eyes, and one of them would definitely jump, or several, if they already know what we're about. And if not immediately, then at least they can watch it later in a recorded format. Okay, so let's take a look at the map if there's anything happening in Bakhmut and other parts of the front. We haven't seen each other for several days. Okay, I'll say that the whole process is not has not changed much. In Kherson, it's mostly artillery duels. There are about 15,000 Russian troops in the south on the right bank of Kherson, and they do have a second echelon, a little bit of reserve, but it's very tiny. The main goal is, it's at the bottom left of the map, is not to let our troops cross the river. So they're also ill-equipped, rather beat up, a lot of mobilized, don't have enough equipment and vehicles. Formally, yeah, they're called paratroopers and all, but in actuality, it's a ragtag group. Also, there are a lot of booms happening in Crimea. I think it must be local Crimean partisans who probably went to a local store, bought some UAVs and grenades, and started sending them to Russian airports. Near Orekhova, there is a little bit of activity, very tactical, about nothing. Vuhledar, also tactical skirmishes, no motion. Marinka, they are continuing to try to move. You probably have seen the pictures online. Marinka is no more, it's just a rubble, but we're still holding the area. And Bakhmut is probably the most known part of the front now. It's in semicircle. People are trying to, on the Russian front, they're trying to encircle it from both sides. And the Russian media already are acknowledging that they were kicked out a little from the road. But in general, the situation is pretty difficult, and it's not so easy to hold it. Do you think it's the time has come to withdraw a little bit and leave that and keep the front straight? I have my own opinion, yes, but it's up to top military command. They have all the information. I can only state that the city is semi-surrounded, which doesn't make it easy to rotate troops in and out and to supply ammo and other logistics, and makes it difficult to hold, but the command will make a decision when and how. Alright, Olexiy, and if we imagine that, for example, they fall back to Khromovo, Ivankovsky, and would it mean that the front will straighten? There are arguments for and against it. One of them is that if we leave it now, we'll have to take it at some point. There is a little bit of political and media meaning of that. And the other side is saying, well, we left Izum. We took it back later. That's what I wanted to say, Olexiy. Yeah, we can take it back, right? Yeah, we can straighten the line, get our things in order, and then come back and take everything. Right? They took Kupiansk, we took it back. If you look in the north, to the north of Bakhmut, you can see a little bit of motion up north to cut Siversk. It doesn't really work. There are some arrows still shown on the map, but they're not really moving towards Razdolovka, Veselaya. It's not really working out for them. If you look higher, Kremenaya in Lugansk region, they're trying to move to Dnipro, Yampol. Makeivka, in some parts they succeed a little bit, but they pay a hefty price for that. Recently they actually started throwing several videos showing how they storm our fortified regions. There's, no pity for the invaders, but their life is short and tough. So they're really paying with a lot of dead bodies for their efforts. If you go up north, they're also trying to do a little bit of action near Masyutinka, near Dvorchina. Putin is not learning anything. So, can we say this is that big offensive? Oh yeah, this is that big offensive that is attempting to develop in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 local directions. So, yeah, and nothing. And Vuhledar, right? There was an attempt and nothing worked. It's pretty sad now, right? They're actually regrouping again, and there's a chance that they might make another run near Vuhledar, but we all know how it ends up in that unlucky place for them. They already left 160 armored vehicles, including tanks, there. They'll lose more. That's okay, we're ready. So, look, we have another video we want to show to our viewers. This is about 1 minute long. We showed another one before, and here Women from Irkutsk are talking about their husbands and brothers, and they're turning to Putin to either bring them back or help with supplies. So here are the serfs coming to their landlord and asking for help. I guess that's how it sounds like. The husbands are probably dead by now, but here is the video. Let's bring it up. Dear Vladimir Vladimirovich, we beg you from Irkutsk region, you're our last hope. Please help us save our men. They were mobilized, they were enlisted as a part of your mobilization effort, as a part of 95-380 group. They were sent to Opetnaya village near Avdiivka, have not communicated with us for several days. Yesterday, by some miracle, they managed to call through. Now they're being shelled by Ukrainian forces. Their command abandoned them and is not reacting for their pleas for any support and forbidding them to leave their positions. They're already out there for several days without food and water, only with rifles, surviving under constant barrage of the enemy they already have dead and wounded, whom they can't even evacuate from the field. Please help save those whom we still can. Send some other troops in that direction or evacuate them. We believe that only you can save our fathers, husbands, brothers, and sons. Please help. Please help us, Vladimir. Well, yeah. This is the recording, and I'll add to that there was another news just following that the governor of that region, Denis Pasler, after the complaints of Mobilized and their family members, where he commented about the video, the first video that appeared about from the front, where mobilized people were talking that they were sent to the front to attack Ukrainian positions instead of being put in the second echelon. So this is just another confirmation that indeed, when they recruit meat, they throw that in the grinder and the meat dies. And it's confusing that people are turning to the main organizer of that, asking for any aid. In this case, there are thousands and tens of thousands dying there, but that narrative still continues. You mobilized us, you train us, you equip us, but in the meantime, please move us to some quieter place, maybe to a territorial defense on the territory of Russia, and remove us from the front. And I'm quite sure in military they get a response. You, Mitches, who will be defending the country? And I think that's the dialogue, really, that's happening between them. You know, Mark, what's the difference between the stormtroopers on our side and the Russians? Our detachments of that type, they're elite. They're best of the best. It's most honorable to get the prefix storm. It's costing a lot. It's the best people, the most motivated are going to these detachments. They understand they will have to carry out the most difficult tasks. These several corps that were aggregated with the police recently, remember we talked about them, several new ones. President visited them, gave them their banners in person, and Zaluzhny visited them as well. So all the motions here on our side are going alongside the code of military prestige and honor, because we are using these detachments as they should be used. One can say wisely. We understand war is war, but the government definitely supports them with what we can. And at the very least, we prepare them, we select them, we prepare them. Even equipment is not the best, motivation is the best. These are the people who want to go in the fight and want to liberate their country. A good example is Azov fighters. On the Russian side, if you are being sent to storm detachment, it's basically a sentence. You're being sent out as a meat. And maybe you survive one battle, maybe two, but sooner rather than later your career will be done with. It'll be a short one. And remnants of that group are being removed from the front when they are really almost destroyed. There is some officers probably left. Then they refit them with new mobilized and send them back to die. And this is the difference between two governments, how we use that. And there is another nuance here. None of the wives or the guys who were on the video before that, no one is of these Russians is asking a question, why the heck did you send us to another country? What's the reason? Yeah, right, you're right. There's not even a word about that. Just equip us, right? So equip us better so we can kill people better in the foreign country. So you can fulfill the tasks better that is set in front of you by criminal regime. So you can be better criminals. So there's a series of rhetoric questions addressed at them. Our people are dying for their land, for their families. What are these tormented folks dying for? And that's the joke in Russia that, first of all, they mobilized them, and then they didn't even equip them. They just threw them to die. So when finally citizens of that big country will realize that they're just being abused, that the government cares about them only as a meat, then maybe they'll change the tone. But until then, yeah, we have about 300,000 already watching us. People continue clicking the like button. Please click the like button. Yes, a message to all of y'all. Do not forget to subscribe to Privateer Station. Mark, I'm slowly leaving the frame because you guys are not liking our stream. See, I'm leaving. Oh no, okay, you're clicking the button. I'm coming back. We got an improvisation here today. That's also good. Okay. Rheinmetall, German tank factory, promised... Wait, Mark. Let's go through the news, right? Why am I stepping in? All right, let's start from afar, but this is a very interesting thing. That light that shines upon other events. The government of Argentina announced that they're breaking relations with Great Britain. Their participation in a peace treaty over the Falkland Isles, which separated how the two countries provide and support logistics. If we remember, those who are older remember that in the 20th century there was an amazing operation when Argentine junta occupied these lands, and they formerly belonged to British Empire, to Britain. Britain organized an interesting expedition and took the Isles back spectacularly. So all of a sudden, why Argentina is popping up at this time? And probably it's an attempt to disperse some efforts of NATO, to add another hot zone to the world. And my projection at this moment goes immediately to what's happening with Russia and China. What was Argentine government promised, so that they would be brave enough to, or what would it be worthy to break that relation with Great Britain? Let's see what else is unfolding in the meantime. United States sanctioned 37 companies, 30 of which are Chinese, for violating sanctions against Russia. So companies that are doing cloud computing, gene therapy, and medical research are getting sanctioned. So Americans are targeting companies that are certain branches of future development for China. And they're also attacking companies that are, with these new sanctions, the ones that are specializing in the IT hardware. They also, Department of State also announced a couple more companies that are violating sanctions against Iran. And China, in return, is asking of United States to stop any relations and military support with Taiwan. Remember, we talked during the Bali meeting, the Bali summit, when Biden and Xi Jinping met. Right, November 14th, they talked for about 4 hours. So we discussed options, right? What would be another Cold War, some treaties, or will be tactical moves and strategic moves around that. So the contract didn't work, and Americans are continuing to fight with communism, so that's their favorite foe. And China is now in that scope, somewhat. This is definitely not the Cold War yet, but it's somewhat of raising the stakes. And the rhetoric is there, and the sanctions are being applied too. How is China reacting to that? China has its own rhetoric, but there was a very interesting news that blipped on the radar that Chinese stopped selling their drones, DJI. So in Russia, they were rather upset because this is one of the main tools for the platoon and company level. These drones that can see things and drop little grenade-like explosives on the heads of fighters. Those videos that we see from the front, not only Ukraine is using that, Russia is using similar type of drones. So here, on the background of war, we have two countries sanctioning each other and adding swear words and other actions at each other. So we're seeing how that's unfolding. Now we see somebody who is not on the side of United States and NATO definitely applied some maneuver to Argentina to push into the window. And we'll see that likely there'll be interesting other events unfolding in this relation. Iran is somewhere on the horizon, and Russia is definitely in the scope. So combined West is definitely sanctioning different companies. So some of them are not even military suppliers. They're supplying chips and microchips and others of dual-use technologies, so they're being sanctioned as well. Lavrov went to India for some summit, and he was laughed at. He's actually on a good, it's in good English. So Lavrov is saying there, when Ukraine attacked Russia, these Indian folks who are listening couldn't even hold their laughter. The laughter was pretty loud. Lavrov was, although an old school, he was keeping his face straight. Yeah, poker face, exactly. So about oil and gas, Russia in the meantime is reporting that they are facing some financial trouble. As a result, at the end of February, they got 46% less income and from oil and 42% from natural gas compared with the same period last year. So that definitely sharpens the problem that we talked about and we will continue talking about, that besides calculating thousands and tens of thousands of mobilized, there is actually an economic problem as well. How to support war with money economically? Do you spend money for your budget needs or do you spend that money for war? And that problem is going to rise up sharply in June. But I suspect by that time Ukrainian army will beat up Russian groups so much that this question will not be just present, it will be present and rising. And the West is also sending a message to Arab Emirates and Turkey, saying that why are you providing that safe harbor for Russian money? Arab Emirates remaining quiet. I haven't seen an answer yet. Turkey already responded saying, yes, we do support sanctions, but we need the United Nations to support that. Until then, we are not exactly morally ready or motivated enough to do it. So we'll see what the West will be doing in regards to these two countries as safe havens for Russian money, especially looking at the presidential campaign unfolding in Turkey and some other things happening. I can see that the pressure of the West on the countries that are giving a chance to circumvent or not support sanctions, the West is really applying pressure to these companies and countries. And in the United States, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Justice also turned internally and said, guys, if we find that you're supporting Russian Federation, pretending that you didn't know that you sent it to Hong Kong or some China or some other place, we will be investigating cases like that, things will happen to you. And we can say that, yes, there are some companies doing that. They're selling goods to Russia through China, through Pakistan, through some other countries. And right now, the kaleidoscope of these statements that happened in the last 4 days, and it's not just anybody, it's Department of State, it's some big level officials. It just shows us that the West is concentrated on cutting off Russian tentacles, or Putin's regime's tentacles from the world. And what is Vladimir Vladimirovich doing? he's answering saying that we'll nationalize the companies that blew the federal order, who promised to deliver a certain amount of goods and failed to do that. So how would these companies fulfill that order if they're lacking components, if they don't have enough microchips? Yeah, right. Even Hitler did not touch Krupp. Hitler, I guess, was not smart enough to sanction his own industrialists or catch Speer and demand sanctioning his own businesses. But Russian businessmen are starting to think a lot now, especially the ones who are collaborating with the Russian tech company, which has relation to a Russian industrial military complex. Why are you going to nationalize us if we are just cannot supply you in proper numbers? We hear that Potanin and a few other oligarchs started to really worry about their position in Russia. And Putin basically said again that simple people will be terrorized and will be punishing you severely. And businesses, if you will fail to deliver on our requests, will nationalize you. So I think finally the lower levels will start falling deeper into depression, and the higher level might really understand that it might be cheaper to fight against that one person who is doing all that crap instead of waging the full-blooded war and supporting it. And what do French do? France actually stepped in and started confiscating the property of Russian oligarchs. French prosecutor's office managed to arrest a huge villa that belongs to Viktor Rashnikov. His villa was confiscated, the one on Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat. Oh, Rashnikov, I think, has a lot of property in France. Right, but the first step is important. Because remember, there was a period when you were asking me, so when will they start confiscating and selling it? You know, Mark, it's private property. It takes time to do that. Well, now we are seeing that they're getting bold enough. And by the way, that villa was registered to some Swiss company, belonged to some Panama unknown entity, and French investigators figured all that out, figured who owns it at the end, and got several $1 million for that property. That's in France. And also adding to that a news about the court proceedings against some Swiss bankers who are helping Putin to hide his money, and confiscation of Russian companies and their daughter companies in Germany. So the whole world is starting to actually become more active against the whole Putin's regime and its presence throughout the planet. Now there is an interesting meeting in Lvov that's happening, starting with the president and the Euro Commission. Roberta Mazzola, right? I actually know her in person. But I'm sorry, just a little tired, so her name was slipping my mind. And Ursula von der Leyen said that, you know, we will sign another agreement, a historic agreement about creating a special tribunal, and we'll be putting them behind bars. And if I was a fellow from Kremlin, I would be looking at these wagons speeding up on all these railways and would take a very long look at Vladimir Putin, at the cup that he's drinking from, at the plate and the food on that plate. And I would think that March is such a symbolic month in Russian history. And Russian Tsar is such a dangerous position. Over 50% of them died on their position. This is one of the most dangerous positions in the world. Maybe follow history, and March can become a month of change. And, you know, school bus in Bransk and wives in Irkutsk and Potanin and oligarchs, and even that 11-year-old unknown hero Fedya will also feel good. Let me find, Viktor Rashnikov, he also will be good, the owner of that villa. Everybody will be good. Only one man will be bad, will feel bad, and hundreds of millions of people will feel good. That's a very simple choice. You know, guys, March is here because if you don't do that, you'll lose villas on your Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat But this also is probably a defining thing who will be present at the tribunal. Would it be one man or his remains at the tribunal, or would you be giving him a cozy company on that bench? Because otherwise you're facing to be nationalized at home. Then the West will take everything you have, and then you end up on the tribunal. And all these things are pointing to one single person. And by the way, tomorrow is the anniversary of Stalin's death, March 5th. So maybe suggest them to repeat that wonderful event and celebrate it properly, right? So now, Moldova Parliament, I cannot pass by that piece of news. In the first reading, they adopted a law that they're renaming Moldovan language into Romanian language. And there are still people there resisting this in their parliament. It basically outlines that Moldovan power and their parliament, their congressmen are not afraid. Why would they be afraid, right? They're being threatened with sharpening of relations with Transnistria. Well, they're not hiding. They probably know something, right, that they don't need to hide, and that can cover. And let's talk about ammo and munition supplies. We can talk about British tanks, where we got 28 instead of 14, right? Oh, yeah, we already have a reaction from our favorite patient, from our favorite mental patient. Dmitry Medvedev said that this will be a good target for calibers. I'm reading his quote. The note about building a tank factory by Rheinmetall in small Russia, that's what he is calling Ukraine, reminds me of trolling of a Kievan regime, because if Fritzes will decide to build a real factory, although they usually have been rather logical people, this factory will be a great target for our calibers. Well, he thinks he is funny with these statements. Yeah, I think the time when the factory will be coming online, the balls of Dmitry Anatolievich will be shown somewhere in Hague, in one of the museums, as probably an architecture shape, right? A super small architectural shape, even if they'll be discovered. And by the way, Germans also invented another tank. They went further beyond Leopard 2. That's a tank called Panther. It's better than Leo with the 6th modification. They got a new gun, which is 130 millimeter, not the previous NATO caliber 120. It's all new, and Rheinmetall suggests to start building it in Ukraine, and to build it at a scale of 400 a year. Just as reference, Russian whole industrial complex could make only about 40 tanks a year. And now they lost tanks for about 20 years worth of the future. And Germans want to start building 400 a year. And I think that Germans do understand that caliber can hit the factory, right? And they might have some evil plans about that, right? You mean put some air defense systems? I have another version, probably a more military political. What if, besides launching that factory, Ukraine will also be part of NATO? Then what caliber are you talking about? Exactly. Or will get proper guarantees by NATO. So I suspect they know something. Rheinmetall would not be just doing illogical steps like that. Something will happen. But don't worry, Dmitry Anatolievich, you will likely not be a participant. Right, your head will be drying on a pole somewhere or be used as the darts target. But that's not all. Ukraine ambassador in Britain, in the conversation with the radio, also yesterday you mentioned that there will not be 14 challengers. We'll have 20. And we'll also get a bunch of artillery, self-propelled vehicles that are actually on a similar base that the tank. We'll get 33 instead of 24 of those, which is also good. But this is only half the news. Rheinmetall is also saying, let's buy 96 tanks of Leo 1 from Switzerland that we know they have. We'll refit them and send them to Ukraine. So that's another 100 plus. They'll run out of calibers. Your belly button will not be able to hold that, dear Putin regime. And now, with the joint effort of Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Finance, and the financial investigators of the United States who are tightening the sanctions against everybody in the gray zone, it's not just things are starting to pop up. They're actually aggregating into one point, in the middle of which is shrinking Medvedev and shrinking Putin. And poor Lavrov has to answer for that somehow in front of the international public. And he needs to say that Ukraine attacked Russia, and everybody is laughing at you, and he still needs to keep poker face somehow in front of that. Well, right now they're just laughing. Later they may do something more aggressive and less pleasant. I'm not even going to give them ideas. I don't know how long Lavrov will be able to hold his poker face. So you were talking about all that. By the way, Scholz also visited Washington, right, immediately after his visit to Beijing. So the Western media is calling it quiet negotiations. And Russian propaganda is posing a lot of questions. What are they discussing there? Obviously, part of that conversation is about conflict in Ukraine. Right, Mark. I think Biden probably said that whatever they offered you in Beijing, please don't. And he actually did visit Beijing. He exactly visited Beijing right before going to the United States. So I think he got a message that whatever they offered him there, he was probably told to not fall for those promises. And if it was a movie, Biden would remove a dust peck from Scholz's jacket and say, "Don't. Remember where your spiritual and other roots lie." And he probably also told him a lot of support words that you guys are supporting the values of the collective West by supporting Ukraine. And no China, no Xi can talk you over, right? Right, Mr. Scholz? He won't. You sure? And he probably responded that probably not. And I think that's an interesting conclusion for today. We've been live for 42 minutes. We have about 300,000 watching us, about 120,000 of you click the like button. We are saying thank you to those who spent their Saturday stream with us, their Saturday time with us. Sunday for the English version. Please do not forget to click the like button and to subscribe to Feygin, Arestovych, and the Privateer Station. Another small piece of information for 30 seconds. I already posted in my social media. Here is Ruslana Danilkina. We transferred some money to her, some monetary support. We managed to send 2 checks from the store. So altogether, it was 7,700 hryvnia and 2,200 hryvnias. So altogether, that's about 2,000 euros, the usual grant that we send to the grantees. So that girl was a soldier. She was a fighter on the front, and she lost a leg in one of the operations. So online in my social, there's an account that she has open, and if you want to, you can go there and support her as well. I understand she's collecting means now to go on with prosthetics and try to go on with her life. So I remind you, we are continuing our merchandise project, Feygin and Arestovich. And if you want to participate, you can always do that. Just go to our online store, pick whatever you like, and your funds, 100% of them, will go to support people who suffered as a result of that horrible war. And tomorrow, a small announcement. I will do a solo stream. I will dedicate it to the topic we started talking about yesterday, that action in Bransk, and my communication with White-Rex, the leader of that group. And I'll be talking about how Putin brought war to Russia. And I will, of course, touch upon the topic that is being actively discussed, I returned back from another trip related to that. There was that last psyop against my channel that was unfolded in relation to Nazarov and the stream with him. We'll talk about the special agent from the clerical front that Moscow launched against me. He is a known figure with a goatee, and we'll talk about that character as well. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us, dear viewers. Come again. Thank you, Olexiy. We're meeting you on Monday. Medvedev's appendages and Hague Tribunal. Yeah, we'll do that. You might actually hold him. I will not be holding him. He's in other regions. Maybe I'll use the claws or something to hold him. No, Mark, let's... I will not be holding that figure. I might hold the one who will be holding the equipment. Alright, yeah, joking. We'll see you Monday, right? Monday. Guys, do not forget to click the like button. That's important. Alright. See y'all. Goodbye.